and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 2596BN. Today's date is October 8th, 2021. They're all panicking right now. Remember, we talked about this yesterday, about the playbook, when Patel Patriot put out Devolution Part 12. And they thought they had everything down. They thought they knew every move Trump was going to make. Remember, they set up a color revolution. The color revolution, it has not ended. Think about this for a second. The color revolution has not ended. Why? Because we can see right now that they're trying to push the idea that Trump is planning a coup. Anyone that is with Trump, they are a threat to democracy. This is all part of the color revolution. And they're building the narrative right now. Now, Trump, the Patriots, they already know this playbook. They already know what the deep state is planning. Yes, countermeasures are in place. We already know Red 1, Red 2, Red 3, which we'll be discussing in just a moment at the end of this report, and put everything together to understand what is really going on. But we can see that the corrupt individuals, they're sitting there, they're realizing that Trump, he didn't do what they wanted him to do. He wasn't dragged out of the White House. He didn't have his followers start to riot and burn things down. That was actually the deep state players, Antifa, BLM, and the rest. So they had to create it on January 6th. They had to create the idea that Trump supporters are insurrectionists. They're the ones who are destroying. They're the ones who are breaching the Capitol. They're the ones who are doing this. This was done on purpose. This was a buildup for later on. And what do I mean by this? It was the buildup for when the evidence starts to come out about the election, about their crimes, about treason, about coordinating with a foreign government to rig the election. That's what this is all about. They've been preparing the second part of their color revolution. Now, we'll be discussing a little bit about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the fake news. And remember, why did Trump start out in the beginning of his presidency calling the fake news the fake news? Yes, it's because it's fake. But he wanted to bring attention to the fake news on purpose. Think about devolution, think about the color revolution. When we read the definition about the color revolution, do they use the media to push their agenda? Yes, they do. Now, if people start to realize that the media is not telling them the truth, can the corrupt politicians, the deep state players, use the media to push the color revolution? It becomes harder and harder and harder to do. Because if you don't have the people believing you, you don't have the bullhorn. You can't back up everything that's happening. So when you look at the fake news today, and this is why Trump said this just yesterday, you can see the fake news, the trust in the fake news, the media, it is sinking. And it's going down and down and down. And the trusted media sinks to just 36%. 36%. Now, this is coming from Gallup. Now, think about this for a second. People are no longer trusting the news. And each and every day, it drops. Now, let's take this a step further. Think about Biden in his soundstage. He's sitting there making it seem like he's in the White House. And then pictures started to come out showing him that he was on a soundstage. He wasn't really in the White House. And we come to find out that this was built across the street in the Eisenhower building. Now, Stephen Miller and Trump, they both came out and they said, I think we know why Biden is in a fake White House setting. Because if he was in the real White House, you would see the glass teleprompters and people would see that he's reading the information. In the fake studio setting, you can have the teleprompter right in front of him and you wouldn't see it. And you can see this is exactly what they're doing. And people now are looking at this, and yes, yesterday we talked about it. Fake president was trending on Twitter. They see a fake White House, they see a fake president, and people are looking at this saying, you know something? We are rejecting this president. He's too weak, he's fake, and everything that he touches turns to crap. And you can see by the poll numbers, the people are no longer going along with this fake president. This is how you create a counterinsurgency. Remember, it was supposed to be the other way for the color revolution. It had to seem like Trump was the president that had really low polls. It had to seem like Trump was the president that no one believed in. It had to seem like Trump was the president that screwed everything up. It had to be Trump where no one had faith in him. But if you notice what's happening, the counterinsurgency is working in the opposite way. Trump's poll numbers are going up. He keeps having rallies, and more people are attending his rallies. He tells the truth, and people are noticing this. Biden, on the other hand, he drives down in his motorcade. People along the side of the road, they're booing him. They're all Trump supporters. We're hearing F Joe Biden in stadiums, at sporting events, at concerts, all over the place. His poll numbers are dropping like a rock. Actually, everything has turned on him. Everything the deep state players tried to do to Trump, it backfired, and he is the one who has been weakened, not Trump. So is this color revolution going to work? No. Trump and the Patriots, they know this. This is why they're creating the counterinsurgency. The people are behind the true president. The people are behind the truth teller. The people are not behind the fake president, which makes it very difficult to push the color revolution. You think Trump, the Patriots, the military, you think this was planned out? Absolutely. Now think about it. If they know the entire playbook, if they know what they're attempting to do, and I'm talking about the deep state, can they trap them in all of it? Remember, FISAs work both ways. They used FISAs on Trump. They got them illegally. Actually, it's being proven now with Durham, with Inspector General Horowitz. But Trump and the Patriots, what happens if they had evidence and they produced it to the FISA court and they got FISA warrants and they're monitoring all these people? Can they trap the deep state? Can they trap the corrupt politicians? Absolutely. They know the playbook. You're watching it play out right now. Trump is building the counterinsurgency right now. And he's dripping information out a little bit at a time. And I'm talking about Durham, I'm talking about the forensic audits. He's making these people feel pain. And every time he drips out information, he wants to see how they react. Which direction are they going to go? What are they planning to do? Remember, they're monitoring everything they do. If they're monitoring everything they do, are they going to know what they're planning? Absolutely. Now think about Michael Sussman. Think about how Clinton is sweating right now. Think about how the deep state players are like, how did Durham know what we were doing here? How did he get this information? We're supposed to be protected. He's not supposed to have this information. Now, Sussman, he filed a motion. So his lawyers enumerate the weakness in Special Counsel Durham's indictment in their first substantive motion in the criminal case. So he put this out here. It's pretty weak. Seems like he's complaining. And McCabe's Porsche Unblocks put this out on Twitter. It says the following. LMAO. The only takeaway from this filing is that Sussman is nervous as F because his lawyers aren't really sure who's cooperating, i.e., does 𝐁𝐞𝐞 have a deal? Who else besides Baker is talking? And how much Durham knows, i.e., just Alpha Bank, or is it this going to G2? Yes, Durham has a lot more information. They are now sweating it out. They can't believe that this is happening. Now, if Durham has this information, he has the rest of the information. They're just making them feel pain every step of the way. Now, the deep state players, they know that eventually what Trump is going to do is he's going to release the Kraken. He's going to release the Kraken eventually. And people are going to see all of this. Now, to counter this, what just happened? It seems that the Biden administration is going to be releasing the paperwork in Trump's administration, going beyond the executive privilege. So they're going to release the January 6th documents. Remember, they are fighting for their lives. They need to get Trump on something. Now, remember, Trump had nothing to do with this. This was actually Nancy Pelosi, the deep state players, George Soros, and the Antifa, BLM, FBI informants, agent provocateurs. They were all involved in this. But they're trying as hard as they possibly can to stop Trump because they know what's coming. This is why they had the Facebook whistleblower out there, because they need to censor. They need to take control, not just of their social media platforms. They need to take control of it all. Now, will they be able to do this in time? Well, they're moving through the process very, very quickly. I mean, we had this person on 60 Minutes 24 hours later in front of Congress, and now 36 hours later, they're going to be in front of the January 6th Unselect Committee. But how do we know that this person is fake? Well, we produced a lot of evidence, but Neon Revolt, he said something very interesting. He goes, you want to know how you can tell the Facebook whistleblower is a government-backed blow-up? Because no one in the media or the government is trying to destroy her life, her family's lives, or her livelihood. If anything, she said, presented a real threat or was a real exposure of the powers that be. Those same powers will be working overtime to silence and crush her. Instead, she's elevated on the world stage as though borne up upon gossamer wings, hailed by all Congress as she cries censorship. We need more censorship. She's fake. And I think everyone's starting to realize this. I think everyone's starting to realize that this is not a true whistleblower. This is part of the agenda to censor more and more people because they know what's coming. Just like Google and YouTube right now, what are they doing? They're demonetizing content that's denying scientific consensus on climate change. So they're going to demonetize, and once that doesn't work, they're just going to censor those people. We've seen this playbook before. There's really no difference. And we're going to see it continue on because they're panicking. This is how you know they're panicking. You don't censor. You don't push censorship if you're in control. Were they pushing censorship like they are today in 2016? Were they worried about the elections there? They thought they had it made. They thought everything was controlled. Clinton was going to win. There's no way that Trump was going to win whatsoever. We don't need censorship. We don't need Antifa rioting and burning things down. We don't need mail-in ballots. You know why? Because we have all the illegals that we've been bringing in. We've won the popular vote. And yes, she did. The problem is she didn't win the Electoral College. They didn't count on that. They thought, like in the past, the Electoral College was just going to go with the popular vote. This time, it didn't happen. And they were taken by surprise. They were taken by surprise in 2020. Remember, Trump says the election was rigged. We caught them all. He knew the playbook. He knew the 4 different scenarios. Actually, we were told in the Q posts. They knew what was coming. So did he go along with them? No. He said, all right, I see what's going on here. I'm going to step away, let them do what they do best, and we're just going to catch them in the act. This is going to be a lot better. Plus, I got Durham waiting in the wings. We're going to get them and get them good. Now, what's very interesting, yesterday we talked about the shooting out in Texas and how the gun control people were trying to push their agenda, but it completely failed. But the individual who got the gun illegally, shot 4 people in the high school, including a teacher, this individual was sprung from jail on a $75,000 bond. Now, let's think about this for a second. This individual shot 4 people plus a teacher and was released on a $75,000 bond. The election wizard on Telegram put this out. Kyle Rittenhouse shoots 3 criminals in self-defense. Bait $2 million and no lawyers will represent him. Timothy Simpkins brings a gun to school, shoots 4 people, including a teacher, bail $25,000 and released in less than 24 hours. That's interesting. Let's take this a step further. How about January 6th? People who are waving flags in the Capitol are being indefinitely detained, while this individual who shot 4 people, including a teacher, walks free on a $25,000 bail. Think about this for a second. So the people who are waving the flag, just looking around inside the Capitol, they're being held indefinitely. This goes completely against the Constitution. Plus, there's no crime there. How possibly can they be holding them without any type of trial? Remember, in the Constitution, the Founding Fathers knew you needed to have a speedy trial, because this is the same thing they did in Britain back in the day. They held people in prison, and they kept them there without going to trial. They're doing the same exact thing. And yes, you can see they're following the same exact playbook that they used in the past. And they're doing the same exact thing. Actually, they did this in Nazi Germany. They did it in many other places. Now, what's very interesting is we know they were trying to push the war with North Korea. They're going back to the 16-year plan, and that completely failed. And it doesn't seem like it's really working out for them. It doesn't mean they're not going to try, but it seems like it's kind of failing. And it seems that they're trying to push some type of conflict with Taiwan. China right now is saying that the U.S. must withdraw the troops from Taiwan. They're trying to build something up. And what's very interesting about all this is you can see that they're switching gears, because the CIA is shutting down its mission center dedicated to gathering intelligence about North Korea. Now they're going to focus on China. You really think they're focusing on China? No, they're not. What they're doing is they're trying to build another war. They're trying to build a conflict. They're trying to build the narrative to continue with the 16-year plan. I don't believe this is going to happen. I think this is going to fail. It's not going to work. Now, what's very interesting is we know that this whole thing was built on a fake PCR test that gives false positives. It was created by fake statistics. Then they used the fake statistics to create fear. Then, what else did they do? They had 5 governors take sick people, put them into nursing homes, and people started to die. And people saw the death rate go up. And the news kept building on it and building on it and building on it until everyone was afraid. Go to virtualshield.com/X22 or click the link in the description, because their main agenda was to keep the entire world shut down for a very long time. Trump countered this with, now again, you have the freedom to choose if you want to take it or you don't want to take it. Remember, everyone has a choice. And yes, the Biden administration and many other fake leaders around the world, they're trying to push people into doing what they want them to do. They're not giving them a choice, which means they're going against the Nuremberg Code. Out in France and also in Canada, Macron right now, they already have the passport. People are protesting against this. They're going to make it mandatory at the beginning of the new year, January 1st, 2022, where everyone has to get. So what are they going to do? Are they going to come to everyone's door, hold them down, and give them the jab? Or are they going to do what Biden's doing right now? Listen, if you don't get it, you can't work, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, you can't fly, you can't do anything. Well, is that really a choice? No, that's coercion. And you can see they're not stopping with the adults. They want the children. And they're pushing this agenda. They want 5, actually, they probably want everyone. That's their main goal. Let's just call it what it is. That's really what they want to do. But how do they get there? How do they convince the people that the children must be, well, they put out fake information. They know it's fake. They knowingly do this, and then they correct it later. Take, for example, the New York Times. The New York Times reported that they had overstated the number of children hospitalized by 800,000. They also misreported on Denmark and Sweden's recent move to ban it for those under 30 years old. So they put out a correction, and they said, okay, it wasn't 800,000, it was 63,000 children. Actually, that number is probably even lower. Why do I say this? Because they're using a test that gives a false positive. If you're using a test that gives a false positive, you don't know what the real numbers are, which means this test doesn't work, which means doctors are treating patients for something completely different. I see malpractice here, but we can see they're already beginning the narrative on the PCR test, which we'll be talking about in just a sec. Now, Biden is out there and he's trying to tell everyone, everyone in this country, like the airlines, 99%, don't listen to all the people that are quitting or being laid off or let go. Those people don't matter. Well, you know how they got the 99% number? Well, Don Jr. explains it. Seems to me they went to 99% because they fired the people who weren't vaxxed. It's not that hard unless you're a moron. So they got rid of the people that weren't vaxxed, and now they're saying we're at 99% in the company. That's not 99% vaxxed. Those people were already vaxxed. You got rid of all the other people that weren't going to do it. Do you think sooner than later, all these major corporations where the people aren't getting, I think there's a lot more than people realize that do not want this. Do you think the companies are going to be in trouble? Do you think they're going to ask for a bailout from the government? I'm starting to think that right now because they're going to start to realize, hey, you know what? We can't make ends meet right now. We can't produce. We don't have enough workers. Something is wrong here. We're going to need a little help. And yes, the fascist government, they're going to help out. Just like they helped out the different democratic states where they were destroying the states, allowing Antifa to roam free, burn buildings down, loot the businesses, hurt people, keeping all the businesses shut down throughout. They got money from the government. They knew they were going to get it if Biden was put into place. They were counting on it. Now, what's very interesting is that DeSantis was right about the masks for children, because now the information came out and it shows that he was right. And this is what it says. The new cases for children's ages 5 to 17, the vast majority of the school-age population, have decreased by 79% in the month of September in the 54 Florida counties where school districts have no masking policies or are following state law by honoring the parental opt-out rule. For comparison, cases for children 5 to 17 in the 13 districts that impose forced masking in schools have decreased 77% on average. The state of Florida now has the second lowest rate of infection in the country, and hospitalizations are down 73% since mid-August. So DeSantis is right. Now, again, we're using a fake test. We always have to go back to the fake test, which we'll be talking about in a sec. But Matt Walsh, he put this out. Less than 0.0006% of the child population in this country has died over the last 2 years. Less than 1% of all child deaths during that period are attributed to, there is no for our kids. There never has been. It's all a lie. And it is all a lie. Now think about it. Sweden, Finland, Iceland, they're all saying we're not using the Moderna that are not safe for everyone. And they're stopping it right now. I think we should stop it because we don't know the long-term effects of it. We have no clue. Neither do the pharmaceutical companies. They have no clue. It hasn't been out for 5, 10, 15 years, just like the drug Chantix. We mentioned this before. Sounded great in the beginning. Oh my God, I take this, it stops me from smoking. This is incredible. 5, 6 years later, you have cancer. So what is this going to do to people as they keep getting the boosters? Are we going to see people that are infertile? Are we going to see people that have cancer? Are we going to see people that have heart problems? I do believe we're going to see a lot of these different things. Now, talking about the tests, we know the PCR test gives false positives. We know the WHO, CDC, the FDA, come this December 31st, they are now changing the test. The test is going to separate the flu, and they already admitted that the test gives false positives. Now, what's very interesting is they have already started to build the narrative. Coming out of ABC News, they report that nearly 200,019 rapid test kits recalled over concerns of false positives. And in this article, it says roughly 427,000 test kits, including thousands sent to retailers and some provided to the Department of Defense, have been impacted by the issue. See, they're already starting the narrative. Now, what they're trying to do here is they're trying to say, look, here's a batch, they're giving false positives, and they're going to blame it on the manufacturing or whatever company, and they're going to build this up saying, you know something, we're getting a lot of these false positive tests now, all of a sudden, and we might have to create a new test because this one is not actually working the way we want it to work. But don't worry, we have one that we already have been working on, and actually it's even better. You know why? It separates the flu, and now you'll be able to see the difference. Now you'll be able to see all the flu numbers come back, and you'll be able to see the numbers go down. Now think about why they want everyone. If they give everyone the test that shows flu, and they're going to show are going to show that they have. How do they explain this? Because within it actually reduces your system. There's probably particles in there. They pick this up, and it's going to show that people have who got the. Why would it show that people have? Because they want you to get the booster. Remember, their whole entire agenda is to get you to get the booster every single year. Actually, they want to combine it with the flu, saying, oh, you get the flu booster every single year. So if they show you that it's not working anymore and you have again, they're going to say it's time for your booster. But if the people get the test and it shows they don't have, how do you explain this? You can't. And they're going to be in trouble. They know this. Why do you think they're pushing so hard? Yes, they want complete control. Yes, they want depopulation. That's all part of it. Now, what's very interesting is that the Wuhan whistleblower, he just resurfaced after 600 days. The Chinese journalist who mysteriously vanished after reporting on the ground at the start of the outbreak in Wuhan has finally reappeared in a video after publishing a letter on Twitter, but hasn't disclosed his location. This is 𝐗𝐫𝐞𝐸, and he claimed that the Chinese Communist Party had worked to cover up the truth over and SARS. Now that's very interesting. I think the timing is very interesting. And you know what else is very interesting? The timing of all these news articles that are coming out, the timing of the January 6th Unselect Committee, the timing of Biden waiving the executive privilege to get the January 6th documents from the Trump administration. The timing of all of this, because the color revolution has not ended. Because Trump, he's not in prison or dead. They know that he's planning something. They thought they knew who he was. They thought through their 4 different game theories, they thought he was going to react in a certain way. They thought the military was going to have to drag him out of the White House. None of this happened. He just walked away. They never expected this to happen. Why do you think Nancy Pelosi put up the fence around the Capitol? Because she didn't know what he was going to do. They thought he was going to resist, but he didn't. They still don't know what he's going to do. And they're panicking. This is why they're trying to get him any way they possibly can. Now, the Senate Minority Report, it came out and it exonerated Trump of weaponizing the DOJ over the election results, which we all knew. But what's very interesting, and Catherine Herridge put this out on Twitter, she says, allies of former President Trump have missed a deadline to submit docs to January 6th Select House Committee. The next step could be a fight over executive privilege, which we already see Biden doing. He's going to waive it. Worth revisiting early DOD timeline, which investigators can challenge confirmed through depositions or open testimony. Now, what we see happening right now is we see the buildup of the Biden administration, of the fake news, the corrupt politicians, the deep state players. They're building up the idea that anyone that is with Trump is a domestic. We've heard this before. This is part of the color revolution. We're also starting to see a lot of articles where Trump is planning a coup. Now, I want to go back to August 2021. This is from Washington Post. It says, timeline, Trump's pressure campaign to overturn the 2020 election. So that was back in August of 2021. Think about this for a second. So they went back in time and they said Trump was pressuring the campaign to overturn the 2020 election. Now, September 2021, CNN came out with this article. New bombshell show Trump's coup threat was real and hasn't passed. Okay, so now they're building up the idea that Trump isn't over it and he's still trying to have a coup. Then we have the Senate Judiciary Committee put this out October 7, 2021. At this point in our investigation, we can say that without a doubt, Donald Trump's effort to spread the big lie and undermine the results of the election helped incite almost 1,000 Americans to breach the Capitol in an insurrection on January 6th. Now they're keeping this going. They're building this up. Then we have on October 6th, this article, and this is from New York Magazine. It says, anybody fighting Joe Biden is helping Trump's next coup. They're building the narrative for their color revolution. Think about what they're doing. Once the evidence starts to come out, once the election fraud evidence is produced, not just in one state, in multiple states, I think Trump says he needs 2 more. Once Durham starts to put out information, what are they going to do? They're going to try to do a communication blackout. Now, Trump, he is trying to get back onto Twitter. He's trying to get back onto Facebook. He has a class action lawsuit. This is being based out of Florida, not California. Twitter wanted it to be moved into California because they can control the judges there. But that was rejected. And if we go back to post 4414 and we look at Red 1, we already know that Trump's Twitter account was taken down. This was during January 6th, right after they took his Twitter account, they took his Facebook, his YouTube, his Instagram, they took it all down. Now, if they reinstate Trump, we go back to Red 1, don't we? Because Trump, I think he wants to speak to the people directly. He wants to get back on these platforms. I do believe he has a very important announcement. So, will we see Red 1 again? We might. Now, once the information starts to come out and they can't control it with censorship, we're going to see Red 2, which is a central communication blackout. Now, yesterday, when we talked about the color revolution and their 4 different plans, remember, one of the plans was to have Trump still in office. Say he won, then they challenged it, or Biden won, Trump wasn't leaving office. So Trump and Pence were in the office. And this is making a little bit more sense now on Red 3. Class movement of Pelosi or Pence, because depending on the scenario, if Trump and Pence were still in the White House, they would move Pence and they would go after Trump. But if Trump is no longer in the White House, they'll probably move Pelosi. Now think about the color revolution part of it. Think about what they're doing. They're going to create the instance, just like in January 6th, where they're going to say the Trump supporters, the Q followers, because remember that article from the New York Magazine, anybody fighting Joe Biden is helping Trump's next coup. They're going to have Antifa and agent provocateurs and many others, maybe some infiltrated groups. They're going to appear that they're Trump supporters, Q followers. Now, the mainstream media, the fake news, they're going to back this up. But think about what's been happening with the fake news. People are seeing them as fake. Their ratings are continually dropping. No one's believing them anymore. This is how you start or prepare for a counterinsurgency. Because if no one's believing the fake news, they lose a huge part of their push. So if they have people out there dressed up as Trump supporters, Q followers, and they're pushing another color revolution, look at Red 4. movement of military assets to central locations under the guise of citizen riot control. So we have the Biden administration. They are going to move military assets. Could be the National Guard. It could be the Marines. This says 10th Mountain _ 1st Marine. And these different military organizations, they will be pushed out and they'll be used to control the riots. But they won't be controlling the riots. They're going to allow them to happen. Now, think about the governors and the mayors. They're not going to do anything because during a color revolution, what do? You allow the rioters do what they do best, because this is how you push the color revolution. Now, since they got rid of the central communication in the continental U.S., the fake news is going to try to push their narrative. These are Trump supporters. They're in, Los Angeles. They're in D.C. They're in Boston. They're in all these different, Chicago. They're in all these different cities, and they're rioting because everything that Trump told them to do, everything they thought was going to happen, didn't happen. Now, think about this for a second. Think about all these red lines. Remember, this is a red line that the deep state has to cross. And each time they cross it, there is a countermeasure in place. So if we know this, Trump knows this, they are prepared for the countermeasures. Now, what have they been building this whole time? The counterinsurgency. They've been hitting the fake news really hard, showing the people how fake it is. The people no longer trust the fake news. They no longer trust the Biden administration. Look at his poll numbers. And they believe the truth teller. They believe Trump. Now, remember, it was supposed to be the opposite way. They weren't supposed to believe Trump. They weren't supposed to look at Trump as the truth teller. They were supposed to look at Trump saying, oh my God, no one has faith in him. He's losing in the polls. No one believes him. He's a lowlife. That's what they were trying to do. It backfired on him. Trump's counterinsurgency with the military is working. Now remember, the military has captured everything that they did. Remember, FISA works both ways. They caught them all. But again, they need the people. The people must be engaged. The people must see it. They must understand it to fight against it. And I do believe Trump, the Patriots, the military, they planned this. They knew what the deep state was up to. They didn't follow along with their scenarios. And the deep state, they're still pushing their color revolution. The playbook is always the same. So if the playbook and the template is the same, you know what they're going to do. And even if they deviate from it, you know how to counter it. Because, again, game theory. So Trump and the Patriots, they know exactly what's going on. They have all the information. Trump's just waiting to play this trump card on them. And we might see this come up very soon, especially with what Biden is doing, where he's waiving executive privilege. This is very interesting how this is going to start to play out now. I do believe we are running red, just like 𝐑𝐞𝐩𝐿 says. Red wave. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.